you have to enforce quality of life. You have to say, we're not going to allow tent encampments. We're not going to allow drug abuse. We're not going to allow all of the trash in our public parks, our businesses, in front of people's houses. That's not who we are as Californians.
He's an American politician and businessman, best known for serving as the 36th mayor of San Diego. Before becoming mayor, he represented San Diego's District 2 on the city council. Well, former Mayor Kevin Faulconer, welcome to State of Gold.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me, and welcome to San Diego.
Thank you so much. I mean, this is an iconic venue. We've got San Diego Bay here. We've got Coronado. We've got the city behind you. This is ground zero.
It's not too bad today.
Pretty nice. It's just your average day in San Diego.
It's right.
80 and sunny.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. And I want to start with getting your take on what's going on with Prop 50, the No on Prop 50 movement. It's taking all the oxygen out of most rooms in the discussion on politics. What's your take on where we are right now?
Oh, I think clearly as Californians hear more about Prop 50, they're going to say a resounding no, John. Look, when we changed how maps were drawn in the state, it's because they wanted to take the power away from politicians. We wanted to give it to an independent commission and wanted it to be fair. You want fair districts. You want them fair for Democrats. You want them fair for Republicans. And so now in midstream to try to change those rules and say, we're going to give them back to the politicians, quote unquote, temporary, no thanks. And I think you're going to see so many people come out of the woodwork, which you are already. People support an independent commission. They want fairness. We don't want to go back to a system that didn't work.
I 100%. Can we agree that this is wrong wherever it happens across the country?
Yes.
Texas, anywhere else.
Multiple wrongs don't make a right.
Okay.
Correct. And again, and every state has their own rules. But in California, we changed ours. And there was not a partisan issue. It was passed with almost 70% of the vote. Democrats, independent, Republicans have said, we want this independent commission. We want our districts to be fair, and then let people fight for it.
Right.
Make your case. But to gerrymander them now and to say we're going to do it solely based on politics, that's taken us backward. I think that's why you're seeing so many people, Democrat and Republican, saying, no, thank you.
So there's an uphill battle now between where we are and November 4th to educate why this is such a power grab, naked power grab. If you're advising the No on 50 movement, what is your advice on educating our population on why this is such a bad move?
I think it's very straightforward. And the angels are on the no side. Keep the independence. Why would we change this system? It's working in California. The voters support it. When we educate people to that fact, I think you're going to see a resounding no vote.
Right. And of course, we've got about 43% statewide vote for Republicans and about 20% congressional representation today. If this gerrymander happens, we go down to, I believe, about 6%
Correct.
Statewide.
And I think people see that for what it is, right? And people want fairness. They want the opportunity to vote for the person that they believe in. They don't want the politicians selecting the districts for them. So I think the yes side has an uphill battle. But that's what makes it interesting in election time.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Educate our viewers and listeners just a little bit more on this subject in terms of why, beyond the obvious, is it bad for politicians to choose their voters versus the other way around? What negatives happen downstream from that?
Simple of fairness and competition, right? We want that competition of ideas. We want men and women to run for office and to make their case. We don't want politicians drawing lines to say, I'm going to favor this person or I'm going to favor that person. That's what turns people off about politics. And I think that's why, again, over a decade ago, Californians said, no, we're going to take it out of the hands of elected officials. We want independence. We want openness and fairness. And when you do that, you have that competition of ideas. We need more competition of ideas in California, not less.
100%. I mean, uni-party rule. We've just seen in the recent past that Joe Patterson, Ali Macedo, and David Tangapa were actually kicked off their committee assignments and their vice chair positions on multiple committees, had their mics turned off when they were trying to express a dissenting view on Prop 50. I mean, it's really a crying shame in California right now.
It is. And again, I think that's why shows like this are so important, because I think you've done a really good job of getting a difference of opinion and ideas. Let's do that. Let's debate. That's what makes California great. But when you stifle that, this whole one-party rule, it doesn't work. It's not working. And look, I say that as a proud Republican who has won, one as mayor and 2 city council seats here in San Diego before that, in a majority Democratic seat. But you want that competition of ideas. If you draw the lines, so tightly that folks don't have that opportunity to express their ideas and to have a fair shot, it takes our state in the wrong direction.
Right. And of course, the district maps for the state legislature and Senate could be next. Right. This sets a very slippery slope, dangerous precedent.
And what was it, Ronald Reagan once said, to paraphrase, nothing lasts longer than a temporary government program, right? They're saying, trust us, it's going to be temporary. We'll go back. I don't think so, guys.
Yeah, the 9 most dangerous words in the English language, right? To quote Reagan again. Let's talk about your tenure as mayor. You did a lot of great things, and you were known for your innovative approach to homelessness. You were strong and firm on crime. Let's talk about some of these issues and what you did and how it applies to fixing some of these cities we have in California run by Democrats for the most part, or nationally. Let's talk about homelessness first. I mean, California, we've spent tens and tens of billions, almost 200,000 unhoused people. It's getting worse. We're getting no ROI. How would you apply the lessons of San Diego to California?
When you're mayor, it's about action. I mean, you don't have a lot of time for, I think, the partisanship. If you spend all your time on rhetoric, you're not actually going to get things done. People know when you're mayor if things are working or if they're not. And I really made a concerted effort to say, okay, what's the problem? What are we going to do about it? And so I had this bias towards action, and particularly when it came to homelessness. We have encampments on the street. Let's get rid of those encampments. Why? Because it's not humane to let somebody kill themselves on our streets. I was about intervention, intervening because we care enough about you. I don't want you to die out here. And so we took, at the time, which was some very different path than you were seeing in other places. I felt strongly that people should have a safe, clean, sanitary place to go. I think we owe that to people. I do. So we better provide it. So we dramatically increased our shelter space in San Diego. And I picked the locations myself because you're always going to have somebody say, we need more homeless services. I just don't want it here, Mr. Mayor. I just don't want it there. And so I said, look, I'm going to pick the locations and I'll make a deal with you. If it's not better and cleaner and safer with the shelter, you know who to blame. And so we provided those spaces. But I think what's equally as important, John, is you have to enforce quality of life. You have to say, we're not going to allow tent encampments. We're not going to allow drug abuse. We're not going to allow all of the trash and everything else in our public parks, our businesses, in front of people's houses. That's not who we are as Californians. Democrats and Republicans equally don't deserve to walk across needles and feces. So you have to intervene to clean it up. And I felt so strongly about that I created a new division within the San Diego Police Department called the Neighborhood Policing Division. Sole focus was on homelessness and quality of life. And it worked. And our officers loved it too, because they knew that they had the support, not only of their mayor, but of the community, of making a difference to tell folks, hey, you can't be here, but we have a place for you to go. So the two have to go hand in hand together. So we need that shelter. We need temporary housing. But you also need to say, we're going to enforce our quality of life. Because if you don't, what happens? People vote with their feet. They leave. Businesses leave. It's not fair to parents who are walking their kids down the sidewalk or trying to get to school to have to try to go through some of that stuff. And so I think we had that right balance in San Diego. And indeed, we're the only, big city in California while I was mayor that drove homelessness down. It was very compassionate. It was very fair. But again, we said, here's what we're going to accept, and here's what we're not going to accept.
That's a great summary. And I'm wondering if you applied this to some of the other cities in California, and Los Angeles being the biggest, but some of the mid-sized cities, what is preventing other mayors from executing the same kind of strategy that you did?
Political will, or lack thereof. It's not rocket science. And again, this is not a partisan issue. This is what is in the best interest of our community. What's in the best interest of individuals on the street? And I took the position that we have to intervene. What we're seeing is a substance abuse and mental health crisis. And to say, we're just going to let you hopefully make the decision yourself to leave and seek help, it doesn't work. It just doesn't. You cannot run a city that way. That's why we did it differently in San Diego. No one ever came to me, John, while I was mayor and said, Mr. Mayor, I wish that tent encampment was back out in front of my house. No, they said, you know what? Thanks for doing what we're doing. what our officers are doing, what our mental health professionals are doing, what our service providers are doing. Again, we care about people enough to intervene, particularly when people are some at their lowest points and not able to make some of those decisions for themselves. And to see the transformation that occurred when somebody got back on their feet, when they had that place to go, when they had people that say, hey, we care. Again, it's compassionate to intervene. It is not, I repeat, not compassionate to let people go out and die on the streets.
Yeah. So a combination of services and enforcement equals compassion. I think that's a great way to put it.
I absolutely believe that. And I think the results, were evident about it. Again, you can't do one without the other, particularly, again, back to when it comes to substance abuse and everything. We have to say that's not acceptable. We're not going to let that happen. And when you do that, it works. People see a change, and individuals know what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
Tell that to San Francisco. Let's talk about this, Mr. Mayor. Let's zoom out. You were a Republican mayor of one of the largest cities in America. That's not common these days. Most of our big cities, blue state cities, are run by Democrats. What's your advice to Republicans to successfully position and retake some of these cities to change the game on the ground for citizens?
Clearly and boldly state what your ideas are and how you want to change it. And I'm a firm believer, again, as we talked about earlier, that most of the things that you're dealing with in an American city are not partisan stuff. Is it safe? How are your parks? How are your libraries? Are you paving your streets? Are you giving people an economic opportunity? And people know that. Again, when I got elected, I think registration in the city of San Diego was probably 25% Republican. So you have to have the power of your ideas and then go out and articulate, fight for it. And again, when you do that and you say, here's what I'm going to do, and then follow up with it, I think you will find a pretty good result. I was proud of a lot of the things that we were able to do. And again, I did it with a coalition. I did it with Republicans, Democrats, and independents who believed in San Diego. That was my whole message. We're one San Diego. We're one California. And if you actually say, and be very clear and articulate about what you want to do, I think most people say, yeah, I want that. The bias towards action.
Mm-hmm. I like that bias towards action. That's actually one of my favorite phrases. I'm so glad that you resurfaced it. Thank you for putting it in my lexicon again. Bias to action. Bias to action does not exist with a lot of government leaders, particularly in California, I don't have to tell you.
Yeah, and it's easy sometimes to sit back, and particularly I think when you see, in legislatures and others, you just, sit and press the button.
Yep.
I think from an executive standpoint, again, you have to bring people together and you have to say, if there's a problem, what are we going to do to fix it?
100%. I mean, executive is the operative word. Executive is what we need in government. Let's talk about Mr. Trump for a minute, because he's sending the National Guard. Obviously, he federalized them. We took federal control of the system, the Metro Police, I should say, in D.C., threatening to do it in Chicago. What's your view of his actions in some of our major cities, and how do you think that our local leaders in California should collaborate with the president and the feds to address some of these issues, crime and otherwise?
Yeah, no, great question. And look, when I was mayor, I served under President Obama, Republican and a Democrat, and I did a lot to work with Washington, D.C. Then also, served under President Trump as well. So I think it's important when you're a mayor to say, here's what I believe in, here's why I think it can help, and also stand up if you don't think so. And again, try to make that case. When it comes to public safety, it was something I felt very strongly about. I was proud that during my tenure, we were selected as the safest big city in America. My very first day in office, I brought in a new police chief, the first female police chief in the history of San Diego. And I said, we're going to make this city safe because it affects everything we do. You can't have a strong economy without public safety. You can't have people feeling safe in their neighborhoods without officers who were there when you respond to 911. So I think it's incumbent upon mayors to say, we're going to do what we need to do in our city to help prevent that crime. And then you don't have to worry about some of the other stuff.
Right. And so would you say that federal support on the ground, I mean, obviously there's DEA, there's FBI, there are the federal agencies that don't require federalizing, a state guard,
Right.
a National Guard, but would you support that kind of action in major California cities going forward?
I think it's important that you strike the right balance, and it depends on what the situation is on the ground at any one time. I mean, we've seen riots in California, and what Pete Wilson had to do with the National Guard, and others. So I think it's situational dependent. But again, back to what I was responsible for as mayor. I think people expect you to keep a safe city, and if you're not doing it, you're not doing your job.
Got it. Okay, that's diplomatically put. I appreciate your positioning on that. Let's talk about 2026. So much at stake for California between now and 2026. You ran for governor during the recall election. You put some major points on the board. What did you learn when you ran, and how would you apply that to Republican efforts to take back the state house by January of 2027?
Yeah, great question. I think people are hungry for change. I do. It didn't happen during that cycle, during the recall, but I'm a big believer in the pendulum swings both ways. And I think people are finally saying we need to have some balance back in California. And so back to what we were talking about earlier about articulating what you would do, what you have done, and what you think this state needs. And don't be afraid, again, to be very direct and to be very bold about that. I think the candidate that does that the best is going to be one that has the best opportunity for success statewide.
Mr. Mayor, let's finish with a little bit of rapid fire, which we do with all of our guests. These are kind of a bit of a lightning round, one phrase, one word. The first is, if you're king for a day, the single biggest thing you do to fix California for citizens.
If I was king for the day, I'd waive all the dumb rules and bureaucracy that's making our state too expensive. It's all coming down to affordability right now, John. We have to make California more affordable.
I so agree with that. It's the populist kitchen table issues and taking up that mantle.
It's everything. I mean, it's gas
everything.
prices, it's housing prices,
It's
cost
everything.
of goods. It's everything.
And everything. It's everything. And of course, we don't have time to go deep in education, but I think that is the 1-2 punch for families and
Right.
kids. And of course, we have a huge education crisis. Number two, is there a California leader, past or present, that's really inspired you?
I think how President Reagan and even Governor Reagan, the way that he approached individuals and he brought people together, dealt with people. And I've always tried to take that same philosophy, even if you disagreed with somebody, treat people with dignity, respect. I think Governor and President Reagan did that, and he brought Democrats and Republicans together. I think we need more of that in California right now. And I think he was one of the best that ever did it.
Yeah, 100%. Of course, on this show, we're giving equal time to Democrats and Republicans. We just want people with great ideas.
Amen.
What gives you hope?
Our people. I mean, Californians always come together when it matters. I mean, we've seen that recently in some of the crises of wildfires and others. You take out all of the noise and all of the politics. People love this state and care about it. That's what makes us unique, and that's what makes us special. California is worth fighting for. And it's going to be people that make that difference.
It's really well said. I like it. Last one. Finish this sentence. California is
the best.
All right. Good words to end on.
Good to see you.
Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for this time.
Great to
I
see
really, really appreciated this.
See you soon.